Hello and welcome to History with Will and Connor. How awesome is this? Oh. Oh, yeah.
Stop.
Right, hello. I'm Will.
And I'm Connor.
Welcome to another episode of History, Tsarist Russia. We're on to the third unit / thing.
Russia in Revolution,
1904
1904
to
to
1906.
1906. That was really, really lame. Moving onwards. Right.
Setting the scene is Mr. Durkin.
I'm just going to go straight through the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. Right, basically, what it boils down to is Russia wanted to have part of the Japanese Empire. Japanese wanted to expand. Russia wanted to expand. They both tried to expand in the same place, and they ended up fighting. This caused devastating effects in Russian economy and Russian sociology. People started hating the Tsar because they didn't see the point of this war. Lots of men, again, peasant army was sent off to the front, and they actually lost quite heavily in battles like the Battle of Tsushima. And there's another land battle I can't remember the name of, and also the fact that the Baltic Fleet, Russia's pride, was defeated within, I think it was 24 hours. 99% of the ships were completely obliterated by the superior Japanese navy. That's the Russo-Japanese War, pretty much.
How awesome was that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right, okay, I'll stop doing it, I promise. So, in 1905, January the 6th...
I believe so.
Bloody Sunday, a turning point. The government and the Tsar seem to lose any hold of the working class, and the massacre fuels further unrest. And students encourage workers. Strikes escalate and spread to Moscow, and the railway workers strike, meaning that Russia is completely paralysed, and troops cannot be moved. This is what happens generally in... this is the effects of Bloody Sunday. Oh, we didn't say what Bloody Sunday was.
Bloody Sunday was a peaceful demonstration led by Father Gapon, Father Gapon or Gapon, who wanted, just more liberal reforms, and it wasn't even against the Tsar. They claimed that the Tsar was their father. They hailed him as their leader, but they, wanted him to end the war and for him to sort of, instigate a few more liberal reforms. And the response by the Tsar was to shoot at the demonstration. The peaceful demonstration turned bloody.
Yeah, the effects, as I said, that the government and the Tsar seem to lose any hold on the working class. And strikes escalate throughout the year, and railway workers strike completely paralyses the country. And the troops, which are the government's one source of suppression and ending this, cannot be moved because the railways are out of action. Peasant Unrest also begins, in the city of Kursk, I believe. And generally, all disconcerted groups are starting to make a problem, particularly with the backdrop of defeat in the war, which Connor was talking about before our amazing music. The best and most reliable units of the army are still in Manchuria, leaving... that's where the war was. I don't know if you said that.
Manchuria, yeah.
Leaving a relatively recent recruited in Russia. Minorities with mutiny, with troops, and they're because they are shooting their own people. The government seems to be losing control. An example of this is in June 1905 with the Battleship Potemkin, which is quite a major mutiny. The whole ship was taken over, and there was quite a lot of drama. I would go into it. It is quite interesting, but all you need to know is that there was a mutiny then, really. There is an ominous development in St. Petersburg. New organisations are created by October 1905. This is called the Soviet for the workers in the peasantry, and it's now directing the strike. Its chairman is Marxist and revolutionary Leon Trotsky. This leads to a lot of nerve in the government, and in October, treasuries and ministries are on strike, and the employees in the state bank, workers of the Tsar, call for constitutional assembly. Revolution seems to outbreak across society as a whole, with coalition between liberals, bourgeoisie, the working class and the peasantry. In October 1905, Nicholas was hanging on by a thread. He can't oppress and he can't persuade. And enter Sergei Witte.
In 1903, he'd resigned as finance minister, but was called back to negotiate the Treaty of Portsmouth, ending the Russo-Japanese War.
New Hampshire, America.
This gave him a position of power and authority, and he said to the Tsar that there are two options. One, you can establish a military dictatorship. If that was the option, then they would need an alternative to Nicholas anyway. He wasn't the man for the job. They needed someone that would just keep going. Or 2, accept constitutional change, grant a parliament and it will split your opponents. But the moment you do that, the autocracy is redundant. At the moment, there is a coalition between Marxists and Tsarists who just want a parliament. They are united by their need for change, but they are natural opponents to one another. If you grant a parliament, it would isolate them from each other.
Yeah, because Marxists don't want the
Liberal
parliament.
views.
Then the October Manifesto is issued, which states Constitution granted as well as civil liberties or civil rights. Russian people now have basic rights. Can't you believe it? They didn't have it before. State Duma is granted, elected by universal male suffrage, not women, who are granted the power to make laws. The Tsar will share his power. Nicholas does this, however, with the utmost reluctance. In fact, he only does it because of the pressure he is under. There is no other way out. This makes him not prepared to accept the consequences. He still refuses to recognise that he's no longer an autocrat. Effects, Connor?
Well, we've got the short-term effects.
I like that, long-term, short-term.
Short-term effects are that the opposition was completely split in two. I mean, the unity that was discovered by the liberals and the Marxists was completely destroyed because the Marxists said, well, we don't actually want this reform, we just want to destroy the Tsar.
A bit like at the birth of...
Oh, God, here we go.
Huh?
No, carry on.
No, fine. I was just thinking. Carry on, as you were.
I'm fine, thank you. But basically, all the different parties were bought off by various means. I mean, the Liberals were satisfied with the October Manifesto. I mean, most of them, the Octoberists, that we'll come into later. And then you have the...
Okay.
And then the peasantry eventually were crushed by the army. After, I can't remember how the October or the Marxists were brought back, but the peasants were eventually repressed by the army after, because you've got the army back, you've got the liberals back. All you need to do is crush the peasantry. Yeah. So the armies used to crush the peasantry. Managed to survive quite well, actually, considering the amount of uproar there was.
If anything, he was doing a lot better in the end of 1905, 1906 than, frankly, he had been doing in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
To sum up, the bourgeoisie lessened their pressure on the Tsar and turned against the revolutionaries, splits the opposition. In September 1905, the employers were sympathising with the workers and even subsidising them. But in October, after the manifesto, they were now condemning the strikes. As the strikes weaken, the Portsmouth Treaty comes into effect. They start to get troops back from the Far East. Then the end of redemption payments is announced to be formally ended in 1907. Peasant unrest had begun, and the government needs to throw them a bone, and this is it, basically. That's what this is saying. However, they see it as government vulnerability. Ungrateful little tykes, and far from calming down, unrest encourages. I have some stats, Connor. Don't you just love my stats?
I love them so much.
The peasantry are land hungry, and between November 1905 and spring 1906, things escalate. That's not really a stat. Right, troops returning are sent into the countryside to deal with it. Peter Stolypin, governor of Saratov province, hung peasants up and down the province as demonstration, which gave him his nickname of
the hangman's noose as being Stolypin's necktie because he hung so many people. I think it was 2,000 between 1905 and 1914.
The government had lost its nerve in autumn, but with the move into winter, they recovered their nerve. Peter Dinar, I don't know that word.
Where?
Dornavo. I'm sorry. was appointed as the new tough Minister of the Interior to provide backbone. Lenin was surprised by the revolution. He'd been exiled since 1900.
And he'd been in exile in Switzerland, I think.
Yeah, he's in Switzerland. And he tried to come back, but by the time he got here, it was too late and he had to go back again. December 1905, an armed uprising in Moscow was quickly ended by troops, leading to an increase in the government's self-confidence by January. In spring 1906, the government was recovering self-confidence, but they needed to carry out their promise of constitutional reform, and Nicholas was already having regrets. April 1906, the first Duma. Political parties are now legal. Social parties boycotted, leaving to the bourgeoisie. The largest party is the Liberal Constitutional Democratic Party, and we touch on that in the next episode. All I'm going to quickly say, unless Connor has anything...
I just have something to say about how the Tsar managed to control the radical groups. He actually managed to, with Stolypin, how he hung lots and lots of political... Stolypin.
carry on.
I win.
Stolypin.
Anywho, he managed to instigate secret military courts to try political prisoners, and he hung. I think the statistic is 2,000 secret military sort of almost court-martial. There were just no press, no reports on it at all. That's how he managed to repress the radical groups. Just pop that in somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Very quickly, a question that has come up is why Nicholas's regime survived between October 1905 and the meeting of the First Duma in 1906. So that's not including the next topic. Just the point you've got to say is that the revolution wasn't technically real in 1905. It wasn't coordinated. It was a collection of largely disparate events like Bloody Sunday and the Potemkin mutiny and the strikes and the Soviet and minor army mutinies and war defeat and nationalist outbreaks and reaction to famine and everything. There was no one cause direction, you could say that. Law to the army. The army largely stayed loyal. Force was used successfully to suppress revolutionary activity, like I said, in Moscow and with Stolypin. Then the next point is opposition was divided. Obviously, they didn't want the same thing, the radicals and the liberals, and so naturally, when the concession was made of the October Manifesto of civil rights of the Duma, it pleased the liberals and divided the opposition and left the minority, which could be dealt with, picked up, if you like, by the government. And other concessions is there was another more relaxation of censorship and legislation of trade unions brought in as well, which it's not really essential, but you can go and do your research if you want to. And that is it for our shortest history podcast ever of only 12 minutes. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye. How awesome is this? Oh yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.